and JS. Garrett, I am so very honored to have you both here as a guest on my channel for Witches and Wine.
We're so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
We've watched you for a long time. You're actually one of my very favorite witches out there, and such a kind and sweet person on top of being so completely talented. So thank you so much for having us on your channel.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And you guys are my favorite witches, one of my favorite witches out there too. And I watch your channel religiously because I just love you guys and I love the content that you put out.
Thank you.
So the first question that we have is, I have heard JS referred to as the mad scientist. What is this in reference to?
Well, honestly, that was kind of a joke between me and some friends. I had a buddy over to my house, and I took him in the temple there, and I had like all kinds of experiments going, electronics rigged up, and radionics and different types of things contraptions I was building. And so I'm like going around the room, I'm showing him this and I'm showing him that. He's like, dude, you're like a mad scientist in here. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I should identify, because I don't like putting labels on myself as anything else goes. And so I actually jokingly said this to Timothy in a write-up, and the name just kind of stuck. He put it on Become a Living God, and that's what I'm stuck with now. But I'm cool with it.
Okay, well, it's nice to have the backstory to that. And I do see you with your different contraptions and stuff. And I find it so fascinating how you bring all this different technology and these different things into your practice. It's awesome to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's really good at being the most obsessed about having anything occur, like to get the results that he's looking for. So I think that's part of the mad scientist thing too, is that he doesn't stop. So if one experiment fails, it's on to the next, and sometimes he'll do 20 of them until he finds the right button to push to make it happen.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow. Well, that's dedication. Have you ever had freaky experiences in ritual? If so, what were they, and how did you respond to them?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We've had a lot of freaky experiences during ritual. I guess probably the freakiest thing is having something touch you, like something physically grab you or caress you that you can't see. When that first happens for a practitioner, that's like a big, like, holy shit moment for most people, because then they realize that these entities are very much external from us, and they are very physical. Like I guess the most incredible experience that Barbie and I, either one have ever had, is being ravaged by a spirit sexually, in a good way, in a consensual way. But that was with the goddess Astarte, and that'll always be like the highlight, I believe. The other crazy experiences obviously would be manifestations, like in the smoke. Like if you got some incense or something burning, and all of a sudden you've got a big perfect face staring you right in the face that's perfectly formed. That's pretty mind-blowing when that happens as well. The other thing would be weather anomalies, lightning strikes when there shouldn't be any lightning strikes, power outages, or poltergeist activity, something actually moving on its own. That's a pretty crazy phenomenon to witness as well. All these things have happened, so it's never boring.
I actually consider myself to be kind of a voyeur to his magic. Like that's always been my favorite part, is to sit and watch what happens and how the elements react, or how he'll call in a spirit, and every time he calls in that spirit, the wind picks up and like they come in on it like there's no wind before. Or one time I was filming a rite of deification for him, and I sit outside the circle sitting in my chair. I legitimately jumped up and pulled my weapon, because you never know, being outdoors doing the things that we do, I always have my gun on me. I pulled my weapon and there's nothing there, but it sounded like a 300-pound man. The ground shook as it walked up next to me, and it was right there by the time I could get up and get moved. We've done a ritual not long ago with a entity that hugged both of us when we were done. Like afterwards, I turned to him and I said, I felt this warmth and like something just hugged me. And I saw him during the ritual doing this, like he was hugging back. And so I knew he had felt exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And then, I take a lot of pictures. If anybody hasn't seen the pictures, you can look on either one of our Facebook pages. Mine's Black Magic Barbie and his is Garrette Sorcery. But on there's a ton of pictures that I take during that you can see, figures in the flames. Like he did a love rite. And he was asking for potency for the person that he was doing the rite for. And there was legitimately a phallus in the flames, yes.
Yeah, she snapped a picture right when I made the sacrifice, and there was a phallus sticking out from the flame that was very defined. No question about what that is. That picture's actually on my Facebook.
Yeah. Other ones, like we've done a rite of deification journey for Scarlet Bales, and you can see it on our YouTube channel. And there's a perfect picture where it's her face looking back at him, and it was her childhood face. Like she took a picture of her from her childhood. It's her. Like there's no denying it. My rite of deification, he did screen by screen, and you can see my face in my very first rite of deification. So like, you could say it's a synchronicity once, twice, like it just is, you're making it happen, but so many times. It proves magic is real to you, because I've always been his biggest skeptic, and I'm totally a believer at this point.
The other thing, the most incredible thing other than manifestations and encounters is spontaneous healing, like instantaneous results. And this is really the ritual where I made a believer out of her. She injured her lower back, and there was actually a bone out of place, like right where the back meets the pelvis, and it was swollen and disfigured, and I teared up when I looked at it, because I knew what that meant. That probably meant surgery and injections and painkillers. Like it was going to be a lot of medical treatment to fix this. And she was not able to walk at that point. Like she sat down in bed and could not get back up. And so I practically, at that point I was like, honey, before we go to the hospital, can I try something? Because she was in tears saying, I don't want to go to the hospital, and I was like, well, can I try something before we do? And she said, I'll try anything. And so I practically carried her to my temple and made her very comfortable on the floor inside my universal circle, laid her down. And I took the sigil of Raphael and drew it on a piece of paper and set it on the ground in front of her, told her to stare into that while I was doing the ritual. I then took another sigil and placed it underneath her. And then I took a sigil and I pinned it on the ceiling directly above her. And then the last thing I did was I drew the sigil on her back, like over the swollen inflicted area. And, I proceeded to do this evocation with Raphael, and I was essentially asking him, reach inside her and fix the problem, reach inside her and heal her. And so towards the end of the ritual, I'm sitting there and I just have my hands like sitting on top of her back. I wasn't putting any pressure or anything like that. And the bones, it actually popped so loud that we could hear it audibly. And I felt the bone move underneath the skin, like move back into place. And then we both heard a voice say, she'll be 10 times better tomorrow. And then Raphael left. And I was like, holy shit. And so afterwards, she was able to stand up and walk on her own.
I walked back to the bed.
Yeah, she was very tender for 3 days. Like she just had surgery.
That's real. How it felt. If I had back surgery, I can only imagine like the healing process without being cut open. That's how it felt for days. And I haven't had an issue with my lower back since. Now,
not only that, she had also been suffering from fibromyalgia, and that was
mhm.
cured also. No
Well, it was a
symptoms since
nerve
then.
issue from that lower back injury that had happened in college. And all I had done was re injure it at this time. And it was cutting off the nerves to my lower legs. So I would have fibromyalgia pains, but just in the lower half of my body. And yeah, I don't have that anymore. And I suffered with that for almost 20 years, and he healed that. And when you feel something and you hear something so completely defined, and then you have the results that are beneficial to you, you can't continue to stay a non-believer anymore.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Like, there's too much evidence to show that this stuff is real. And I always recommend to people, if you're in doubt, you know, get some services done, or better yet, do them for yourself, and start learning and practicing, and you will see. And that's amazing. And I always forget to call upon Raphael for healing. And every time I hear you guys speak about Raphael, I'm like, oh yeah, because I used to work with him a lot. He's incredible, and I haven't in ages. So, and every time I hear that, I'm like, yes, Raphael. So that's amazing that you are able to heal your wife, and you know she became a believer, and now she's right there with you doing her stuff too. And you guys, I call you guys the black magic couple, or the black magic duo. It's so awesome to see a couple together practicing and doing this and helping others. I think you guys are just amazing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Black Magic, when we got together, we've been together 14 years now. And we've only really been walking this path for about half of those, maybe a little bit less.
We started almost 9 years ago.
So through Black Magic, we have made our relationship amazing. Like, I don't think our family would be this happy, or that we would be this happy without this practice and without bettering ourselves through shadow work and path workings.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And love magic on each other too.
Yeah,
we
that's
do a lot
actually
of
one
that.
of the questions here. Where is it? I have heard you briefly discuss that in order to improve your marriage in some areas you have done spells on each other. What advice do you have for a person that has a partner that's not involved in magic, but they want to improve their marriage?
Well, I mean, my advice would be to absolutely use magic to improve your relationship, but don't do it in a way that is selfish. Do it in a way that is beneficial for your partner, and in turn will be beneficial for you. Like, if you're being malicious about it and trying to like mind control your partner against their will, you might get what you want for a short period of time, but that's eventually going to blow up in your face. So I mean, I would say to just not to be selfish about it, and do it in a way that is focused on benefiting your partner, and that will in turn make your relationship better.
I would also suggest be prepared to do the shadow work that comes with doing love rites, because there's a reason why whatever is going on in your marriage is going on. There's a disconnect, whatever it is. You have to be prepared to figure out what that is and to improve upon it. And that usually means, if you're the one doing the ritual and wanting the changes, that you're the one that's going to have to start that work. And the other person kind of drags along with you and rises the same.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
That's
really how I
awesome.
developed the Astartes love spell that's on our website. I developed that ritual for us, as a couple. And she and I actually sat down and did that spell together for each other. And, of course, that led to doing it for other people, other couples that at their request. And we realized that we had something very special when we got incredible results from it. And so I shared the recipe for the spell with a few other people. And, one young man, he wasn't trying to target anyone himself, or specifically, he just wanted to find his special someone. So I said, okay. He came over to the house. I was like, here's everything you need. I like sent him home with a box of everything that he needed in instructions on how to do this himself. And so he does the spell, and it was about a month later he met the woman that he just married and had a child with, and they're extremely happy. So it does absolutely work, especially if you use it correctly.
Nice. That is awesome. And you guys seem so happy, like when you do beer, boobs, and black magic, and the way you are with each other and the energy that flows. It's awesome to see. So if that's, anything that anyone who could dream of having with doing this spell, I highly recommend, if you're on the fence thinking about getting it done or doing it, go for it because the results are amazing.
Thank you.
And that truly is who we are. That's how we are, in real life. I get on to him on camera just like I do. He sexually molests me all the time on camera, just like he always does. Like, that's who we are. Dr. Mulder has been in our house multiple times, and he'll tell you, yeah, they're exactly as they see him. I think it would be too exhausting for us to try to be anybody that we're not. So.
Yeah, we act like that all the time. We cut up and goof off all the time. We're all, completely serious when it comes to magic, but not so serious when it comes to regular life. We don't take ourselves too seriously. And, if we don't like something, we just set out to change it. You don't let your problems rule you.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And I find a lot of people sometimes really do get way too serious. They miss out on the joy of life. And yeah, let the problems become their day to day, So you guys are a great example on how to get the shit done when it's time to get it done and enjoy life the rest of the time, which is very inspiring.
Thank you.
JS, when you first started on your occult journey, where did you begin?
I started with Belial, actually. That was the first spirit that I ever intentionally made contact with. Leading up to that, beforehand, I'd had 3 crazy experiences back to back on over a 3-week period. Each time it happened on a Saturday night, where I encountered 3 different entities. I don't know if I was out of body or if it was intense dream. Everything was very real in these encounters. And shortly after that, my life completely fell apart. And I was, I got arrested for defending my family. We were attacked by some meth heads when we were swimming with our children. And, of course, I was the bad guy because you're not allowed to defend yourself in this state. So, I was facing 85 years in prison, actually. So I started, I was desperate, I was like looking for the one thing that I knew could save my ass when I was in that big of a pickle. And black magic was what I turned to. So I started, researching, trying to figure out what I could do to help myself out with this legal situation. And of course, Belial was the one that was recommended, and even through his description. And so I started trying to make contact with him, and I didn't really know how to do an evocation. I memorized his incantation, like a summoning incantation, and I started speaking that. Like for 3 days straight, I was speaking that incantation. Anytime I was awake, anytime I was driving down the road, in the shower, I was speaking that conjuration, hoping that he would come to me. And so on the 3rd day, he absolutely did. And it was the first time I ever saw a manifestation. That was the first time I ever heard an entity speaking to me in my mind. And, he said, why have you summoned me? And he just kind of laughed, like chuckled after he said that. He knew exactly what I wanted. And so I said that I wanted the felony charges against me to be dropped. And he said, okay, what else? I'm like, well, I'd like you to take me under your wing and teach me black magic yourself. I want to learn directly from you. Says, okay, what else? I said, well, I would like protection for me and my family so that this never happens again. He said, done. And so he gives me instructions on what to do further. And 24 hours later, I got a call from my attorney telling me the felonies were being dropped. And previously, we'd been fighting these charges for 4 freaking years. And the best deal that the DA was willing to offer me was a 20 serve 10. And, they absolutely had no intention of dropping the charges.
Our gun rights attorney, when he called us, because we had hired, the best that we could find in the area that we could afford at the time. And that's what his specialty was. He said he had never seen anything like this, to have it turn from one day to the next in such a drastic way.
Yeah, the DA called him and he said, we were getting ready to go to trial. He said, I'm reviewing this case here, and I don't, looking at all the details and then looking at the so-called witnesses that were involved here, which were, perceived to be the victims.
They were actually the perpetrators.
Yeah, he said, I don't feel like this guy deserves to go to prison for this. I think the cops arrested the wrong people. So, yeah.
And that never happens, especially in a state like Georgia that is very prevalent for trying to put as many people behind bars as they possibly can. So, yeah, it was 100% the Belial.
Yeah. Wow. So, that was my biggest holy shit moment. And I've been, my jaw hit the ground. I could hear Belial laughing in the back of my head, like, ha, 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 I told you. And he said, get ready, because you asked for this, this, and that too. So, it's training day. And that went on. I actually underwent full possession with him for 6 months, where it was just nonstop boot camp with Belial. And by the time he was done with me, I'd become a sorcerer. So I've been wide open ever since, and it's going on 10 years now.
He did that ritual that he developed, the Court of Belial ritual, from the one, just like everything else we develop. It's usually out of necessity for us or our family or loved ones. But he developed that ritual, and he has helped a lot of people out of completely dire situations as well.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. What a story. And okay, so I can just imagine experiencing that as an individual. And Barbie, what was that like, being married to Belial for 6 months, basically?
Oh my goodness.
The sex was really great.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster, to say the least, because I'm a very strong woman. And although I do fully believe that Belial likes the strong woman, he is not to be told what to do, how to do it. So there was definitely some conflicts that we had during that time, but it also only made us stronger on the other side. If he were to tell me today, hey, honey, I'm going to undergo possession with Belial again, I'd probably get excited.
That's awesome.
I would know how to handle it this time, because you have to remember, at that point, that was my first experience. And I, again, was a non-believer at the time. It seemed crazy to me. And when we went through everything, it wasn't easy because of that. But I would think if he was ever going to do it again at this point, I would know what to expect, and it would be easy, and I would embrace it and have fun with it, because it's also only temporary. So yeah, it was a fun experience. It was a learning experience, and I would do it again.
That is amazing. That's awesome. And that's another benefit to having, a marriage where you're both practicing this, and you understand the dynamics involved. I mean, sometimes when I'm doing this stuff, my husband's not into this at all. And so, when I'm going through these things, sometimes he'll be like, what is with you lately? And I'm like, well, if I told you, I don't think you'd believe me anyway. So, so it's nice that you guys, have this, and you and Barbie, you know what to expect, and you know how to make the best of it, which is awesome. And I bet, for JS, when you're possessed by Astarte, I'm sure he's like, choo choo, right on,
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I've been possessed by Astarte multiple times. We actually renewed our vows. Guess it was about 7 years ago, and I was fully possessed by her at the time. We didn't know it, looking back on it,
I knew it.
I didn't.
I knew it.
But it was a fun ride too. And yeah, absolutely. He'd be like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Oh, that is so awesome.
One of the best nights of my life.
No doubt. And until next time, I wish you dark and wild blessings.